Hey guys, welcome back to yet another episode of the Caffeine and Octane Podcast. This show is brought to you by Ride Lounge, Atlanta's fastest growing storage and social vehicle club, located in Peachtree Corners, with two more coming up, both in Milton and Midtown Atlanta. Exciting stuff. I'm your host, Grant Van Brewer, and over the years I've worked with companies like McLaren, Porsche, BMW, and several others. Today we've got another special guest. He's one of the more passionate Porsche enthusiasts in our community. Everybody please welcome Jon Greenberg.
Pleasure to be here, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming by. And I remember we had crossed paths several years ago, and I'm sure I would have met you in other circumstances being in this car world, but had the pleasure of delivering your Racing Yellow Cayman GTS then. And, for anybody that doesn't know you, how would you describe who you are outside of just what we do here?
Yeah, so obviously huge automotive enthusiast, walking Porsche billboard, of course.
Yeah.
Long-time software industry veteran, been around Atlanta for a better part of 15 years now, give or take. I think, I've largely tried to just entrench myself in all things motorsports, track day guy, car show guy, mountain drive guy, you name it.
Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, if it wasn't for this, then we would have met somewhere else without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, yeah. You're a Ride Lounge member. You've been in the Porsche track community for years.
Yes, sir.
And Caffeine and Octane has kind of been the thread through all of it. When did the car world for you stop being a hobby and become more of a lifestyle for you?
I don't know if I would ever consider it anything less than
Right.
a lifestyle for me. I mean, it started from the time that I was, a wee little guy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
a show like this would have been my dream way back in the day, but largely I probably got more serious when I was, late 20s, maybe early 30s, when you start becoming maybe a little bit more financially capable and responsible and can start, dedicating a bit more time to things like, getting out to the track and doing some, amateur racing and things along those lines. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's been around forever.
So starting off with Caffeine and Octane, which is where we're at right now, take me back to when you first encountered this show, and then what was your first real impression of it?
Yeah, so, I mean, I know this show got started, 2006-ish, right around there, I think, yeah.
Something along those lines?
My first show would have been, not that long after that. I actually joined the military, very early on, 2008. I was stationed in Fort Stewart down here in Georgia, and I made the trek from, Fort Stewart, Savannah area all the way here, and probably my first year, 2008. So I would have been here, second year of Caffeine and Octane, when it was really just, kind of finding its feet.
Yeah.
Totally different world back then, of course, but was still, just mind-boggling in terms of, what was showing up here. And I've been coming ever since. So, we're going on 15 years now.
Yeah, I mean, Caffeine and Octane has grown into something that most people couldn't have imagined. And, 2006, as you mentioned, was the starting point of the show. 30,000 people on a Sunday morning looking at cars, and just, I guess, watching that grow over the years. I mean, what's that been like from where you've been sitting?
It's unbelievable. I mean, I remember for sure, having to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning and on the road by 6 to even get a parking spot that was considered in the show. And, I was mentioning this morning to a couple of friends of mine, coming back here today, one of the most amazing things to me is kind of being able to walk through my life in stages, right, as a car guy.
Yep.
I mean, anything you can possibly imagine is here, right? I mean, you're going to see a guy in a Honda Accord, right? It's parked right next to a guy in a Lamborghini Temarino, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. I've had many friends who've flown halfway across the country just to experience a Caffeine and Octane. It's obviously the premier show on the Eastern Seaboard, and I just don't think you can get this variety and this scale anywhere else, honestly.
Yeah. What does Caffeine and Octane give to you that you can't get anywhere else?
I think it really is kind of the combination of the community, right? I mean, it's also hard to find a kind of what I would call a family-oriented show of this size and caliber, where, I've been bringing my daughter here since she was, 6 months old, 7 months old to shows like this. And again, being able to see all the things you can see in a relatively tame environment, right? Where, you're not wearing earphones because people are banging rev limiters and all that, which, that has its place. Back in the old days of Caffeine and Octane is a little bit more of the Wild West.
Right.
And I think a younger version of myself may have contributed to some of the things that we would scorn today.
Absolutely.
But nonetheless, I mean, I think that's what really sets it apart. I mean, you can bring all walks of life here and feel, like a part of the family.
Yeah, there may or may not be two guilty parties sitting here right now.
I'm pretty sure there's definitely two guilty parties sitting here right now.
Back in the day, yeah. Of course, rules have changed. Things have toned down a little bit. but the show keeps growing. Has the community around Caffeine and Octane, has it produced friendships or connections that have mattered to you beyond the car world itself?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from the business world all the way to, personal friendships. I've undoubtedly ran into folks here, whether, we're driving the same, make and model or into the same cars. I had a JDM import business for many years. We used to show up here every single Sunday with a fleet of right-hand drive cars and, loved all the people that we met who were fascinated with them or were seeing cars that they never had a chance to see in person for the first time in their life, which was, always super fulfilling to be able to kind of almost make some dreams come true in that capacity.
For sure.
And a lot of those guys I still talk to today. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and then we'll shift gears into kind of what you're wearing today. You've got the Porsche swag on. That's not by accident.
It's not by accident.
Yeah, and then you still own the Cayman GTS that we sold you, but now you've got something even more exciting. Tell us about that.
I do have something slightly more exciting. What is it now? 4 weeks ago, I finally worked up the courage to buy a Spyder RS. So it was one of those cars I always wanted to have.
What an incredible machine that is. For anybody that's never seen one or driven one, it is insane.
It's one of the most raw, emotional, driving experiences I think on the road today that still has the capability to hop in any day, any time, any weather, any distance, and it's always going to get you there and give you one hell of an experience in the process. I mean, there's just not that many cars like that out there anymore today.
And it does it with such precision too. It's one thing to get your emotions stirred like in an Aventador, single clutch gearbox, kind of a pig of a chassis really. I mean, really wide, not the greatest track animal.
Yeah.
And then you've got other cars like, let's say a McLaren 600 LT with the roof scoop. I mean, that's getting up there. But getting into a Spyder RS and hearing those induction noises behind your head, knowing that it'll start every day, and then you can go and service it any part of Atlanta. I mean, that's just something that you're not going to get in any other car.
I really don't think there's another, exotic, if you want to call it that. I think that's the endless debate of whether or not, an RS car is an exotic or a supercar or whatever. But, I'll let somebody else make that argument until they're blue in the face. But, yeah, I mean, I think all the above, right? I mean, the induction noise is second to none. I mean, that RS motor is legendary and will undoubtedly go down as one of the single greatest motors ever put in a four-wheel chassis. And being able to, experience that whenever you want, however you want, is just so unique. I mean, I've had a lot of cars over the years, and I mean, that's one of the aspects that always drove me back to Porsche, right? I mean, I do think they are the most usable and approachable, supercars, right, that there are, hands down.
Yeah, I can't disagree there. Porsche is definitely a brand that tends to turn people into a very specific kind of enthusiast, one who actually uses the car rather than just owns it. When did Porsche become that brand for you?
It's funny because I wasn't really always a Porsche guy. I mean, I think, younger self would have been similar to probably you, right? I didn't have a Porsche on the wall, right? I had a Countach on the wall or a Testarossa on the wall or even like Callaway Corvettes and CR1s and stuff like that, right?
We had the same poster.
I bet we had the same Trapper Keeper too.
At
one
you bought
point
it at the book fair.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. It's but when I really started getting heavy into tracking cars, I just kept looking around, after many custom builds and lots of, one-off race cars and stuff like that. It's like, man, what are the people that are really serious about this, that are really fast, driving most regularly? And it was always just the Porsches. I mean, whether it's Boxster, Cayman, RS, all walks of life from, entry level all the way up to the top tier. I just kept seeing them. And then the more I started talking to those guys, the more and more I started kind of leaning towards that brand. And, it really did come down to that reliability and usability factor. It's like, what can you take to the track, beat the ever-living dog snot out of, and drive
it home?
Like, there's not very many other cars in that category. I mean, that fit the bill.
Not without compromises.
Well, certainly not that weigh less than, 3,000 pounds, which was other, kind of the other main decision factor.
That's
there.
a key factor a lot of people don't think about, right?
Yeah, man.
You've got this new BMW M5. It weighs a ton.
Sure.
That takes away from the driving experience in my perspective. And so when you get something that's around 3,000 pounds, the magic really does happen at that time.
I do think that's the magic number. And I mean, we're creeping higher every day. And I mean, listen, I'll be the first person to say that what they've been able to do from a technology standpoint is absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, hopping in a G80 M3 that weighs, close to 4,000 pounds and seeing what that thing is capable of doing, and the fact that they don't, feel like a boat, on the track is technologica.
Yeah.
Right? It's unbelievable.
It is.
But you can't hide that weight. I mean, when you really do get out on track, you know it.
Oh, yeah.
It's there.
Yeah, the braking, the cornering, all that.
All the above.
I mean, the track community around Porsche, it's its own world. I mean, let's face it. What did getting on the track do to your relationship with these cars? And then did that change how you drove them on the street as well?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think a lot of people would probably try to make more of the responsible argument of like, oh man, I get all the aggression out on the track so that I can drive like a normal person on the street, which is still not true. I think, becoming more and more confident as a driver on the track has certainly allowed me to feel, more comfortable and, some of the sketchier driving situations up in the mountain and whatnot. Yeah. I mean, but it does give you that ability to know well within the limits of what you should be doing on the street. And it does give you an outlet to take that 10/10 out of yourself, out on track and keep it civilized when you're not on the track. So it definitely changed a little bit of my driving style, I would say, in both worlds.
Yeah. So years of Caffeine and Octane, years on the track, years inside the Atlanta car scene. Give me the story that always gets a reaction when you tell it.
Man, there's so many. At the end of the day. I'm trying to pinpoint one. I was kind of talking to you earlier. I think one of the funny things was, now knowing the second generation host of kind of the face of Caffeine and Octane, because I did have that JDM shop out there in Tucker, and I had a neighbor moved in, and next thing I knew, the parking lot was full of absolutely beautiful custom cars, muscle cars nonetheless, and it was nonetheless the Brian Fuller, of course, wound up my neighbor, which was probably the coolest neighbor I've ever had, and then became the host of the Caffeine and Octane TV show.
That's right.
Just again, you want to talk about random people that you meet, at these types of shows, and then somehow, they wind up in your life.
Just happenstance,
that's always a really interesting one as well. And I mean, God knows how many stories I could tell about, crazy mountain drive experiences and things along those lines if you want to go down that route.
Yeah. Has anything ever happened at C&O that you genuinely couldn't believe you were watching?
I mean, I've probably seen a lot of things at C&O that I can't believe I was watching, and I think a lot of them probably harken back to the early days. And I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of videos of, people still to this day, maybe not at this event, but others, the drive out was always the place to be at Caffeine and Octane for many years early on. There was no shortage of drama in watching people peacock on their way out of this place.
It sounds like maybe some of those drive outs didn't go as intended for some of the drivers.
I think there were a lot of them that didn't go as intended. I can definitely remember quite a few that ended poorly and quite a few that ended with red and blue flashing lights.
That's of course. For sure. Yeah, so don't do that, guys.
Not the scene anymore today. There's the time and a place for everything.
Well, and that's what the track's for. And speaking of which, on track, has there ever been a moment that, where something went sideways in a way that, you thought something you could have learned any other way?
I've had some very crazy moments on track. I've come very close to collecting probably about $500,000 worth of the Porsche Motorsports cars in a Honda Civic that let me down on the way into Turn 1 at Road Atlanta. It could have been an epic disaster, and I would have felt duly guilty having taken out two of my brethren in incredible machinery in front and behind me. But probably one of my favorite things that's happened out there on track that, shout out to James Marcellana and the Jay Zilla family. They're going to feel, guilty that I'm bringing this out on live TV. But Barber Motorsports Track, if you've never been there, is probably one of the most beautiful facilities on the entire Eastern Seaboard. What Mr. Barber has built, R.I.P. Mr. Barber, is second to none. Yeah. I mean, but the running joke there used to be, they charge by the blade of grass when you go off track. And we had an incident back in the day. I had a fun track car that was relatively inexpensive. Anybody could drive it. The keys were always in it. And I had a good friend of mine that hopped in, and coming into museum felt like we had enough grip and not enough power. So we stayed flat coming into museum, which was definitely the wrong decision. We hopped the tabletop. We cleared almost the entire track in the air. Came down just over the curb, went all the way through the grass down in the museum corner, hopped the curb, went back over the track and into the gravel on the other side. And lo and behold, that weekend was, of course, the NTT IndyCar weekend. So flip on the broadcast, and the first thing I see is our tracks clear through the grass and the impacts from every time we hopped over a curb on the national television broadcast of the Indy races. I still have a screenshot of it on my phone.
That's amazing.
It pops up on my computer monitor every once in a while.
Like, hey, look, there's us.
We did that. We did that.
Where are you headed from here? Is there a car on the list, an event, a track that you haven't done that's calling you?
I'm undoubtedly going to make it overseas. I've been talking about it way too long, but I mean, Nürburgring and Spa are at the top of the list right now. In fact, the fact that I haven't done it yet is probably borderline criminal. I mean, like it needs to happen. I have to know. Like I just have to know what it's like in real life.
Yeah. C&O keeps growing and evolving. What do you hope it becomes or stays, or for the next generation of car people coming up?
I want it to just keep going exactly the way that it's going right now. I mean, I want it to be a premier event where, if you wake up in the morning thinking about a dream car and haven't had the opportunity to see it in person or talk to the person who owns it, this is the place to come. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background, but there's undoubtedly a Lamborghini bouncing a rev limiter somewhere in the parking lot. And I mean, that is incredible. And I'll never forget, the first couple of times coming out to this show as a much younger man and just being astonished at what you could just walk up and see from 3 inches away, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's so important to the community as a whole. The car scene, it continues to live and thrive, but there's been times, I'm sure that you can remember, where it didn't seem like that was always going to be the case.
Right.
I mean, it's had some pretty low lows and some pretty high highs, and I think we're really kind of in a resurgence, right, of the car community, and I hope that continues to grow, and you can't really maintain that without events like this.
Yeah, I would have to agree on that. A little bit of rapid fire here. What's the best car you've ever driven? Not owned, but driven. Could be something that you've owned.
Honestly, I would say my E46 M3 track car is probably the best car I've ever driven.
Just sublime.
I mean, it's just everything you could ever want. It's such a good car, so well balanced. The noises from the S54 are absolutely incredible.
Confidence inspiring.
Very much so. I mean, the front end is godly in that thing, and I mean, it doesn't hurt that it's a full carbon Kevlar wide body car with almost 15 years of design work behind it. So yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable.
All right, well, next time I'm out at the track and you bring that, I'll have to be your passenger.
Please do.
If you have a passenger seat in it.
I do, just for that reason, because there's so many people that would love to get a ride in it, and it's something everybody should experience.
Absolutely. Manual or PDK, you have to commit.
Oh, I hate you for asking me this question so much, because the reality is, if they hadn't been so concerned with emissions and put such long gear ratios in all of these cars, manual would for sure be the answer.
Right.
But because they did, PDK is the only way. If you want to enjoy that car the way it's meant to be driven, and that complements the motors in these cars, because they're not big high horsepower cars, right? If you're buying a Turbo S, sure, get a manual. You got plenty of torque, plenty of power.
Yeah.
If you're buying a Cayman GTS or something like that, don't shoot yourself in the foot unless you want to spend $20,000 on a new set of gears. Get the PDK.
Yeah, because once you're in second gear, you're doing 70, 80 miles an hour.
I think first gear in all of those cars is about 65 miles an hour.
It's ridiculous. And
then second, you're well within go to jail territory by the time you get out of second gear.
Anybody that wants to roast us, you can do it in the comments.
I'll take it.
One Porsche model that is criminally underrated.
Oh, I'm going to regret saying this out loud, but honestly, the 718 generation Cayman S with the 2.5 turbo engine is...
I'm in agreement there, buddy.
For sure, probably the best buy on the market for a two-door sports car of its caliber.
$40,000 or something.
They're so cheap now. It's so hard to beat that performance for the money. They're incredibly tunable. They respond very well to it. If you can live with the fact that your Porsche sounds like a Subaru. I mean, it's kind of the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, definitely on paper it does well. I mean, I remember I was on my third mid-engine Porsche at that time. I was in a 981. Yep. And the next progression would have been a 718, but when that came out, I know, man, I don't really want that. So I went to an AMG V8 for a time. But, I can't disagree there. Best corner at Road Atlanta.
Ooh, man, that's tough. They're all good. That's why I love that track so much.
It's a great track.
Man, I'm going to say turn 3.
Okay.
I think turn 3 is definitely a high skill corner.
It is.
But it also gives you the best opportunity ever to put 2 wheels up in the air, which is always one of the most fun things to do. And if you want to talk about, photo opportunities, 3's the spot.
Love it. Last one. If someone has never been to Caffeine and Octane, what do you tell them to expect the first time?
Man, to be amazed, I think is what I would really say. Like you are simply not gonna believe what you see when you show up here. Just the scale alone, I think, is enough to set most people back on their heels. But I think, when you realize how friendly everybody is, how eager everybody is to talk about their cars and the things that they're passionate about and share that passion with everybody else that's here at the show, you will undoubtedly leave here wanting to come back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can definitely attest to that. And Jon, appreciate you coming on board and
thanks for having me, man.
Giving us a little guest appearance here, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.